Hello, everyone, and welcome to Time for a Chat. My name's Fraser, and I've got a special interview today. Chloe, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. Like I said before, I really do appreciate it. Chloe messaged me when I first started the page, willing to share her experiences, and I guess you've had a way, like you've seen like people with this, haven't you? Like with mental health problems and stuff like that. So you have firsthand experience with that. Is that right?
Yeah, so I've dealt with it and I've um seen many other people go through it. So it's something very close to me.
Yeah, so yeah, that's exactly what I want. And yeah, thank you very much for filling up to sharing it because I know it's quite a big task to share like your own experiences and let alone what you've seen. So yeah, I'd really do appreciate it. So yeah, just if you could tell us just a bit about your background. So whereabouts are you from? Where did you grow up?
Yep, so I'm from Sydney. I was born here and I live with my grandparents. So I've lived with them my whole life. My mum lived with us for a bit. She currently lives somewhere else, but I've got my own little granny flat. So it's really nice having my own space.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess having that own space would be very beneficial because I guess if you live certain people for that long, I mean, like living with parents and stuff is so like full on. So I
Yeah.
guess yeah, having that own space would be really good.
Yeah, and I'm definitely introverted, so I need my own space and my own time, just to be able to lock myself away and gather up energy to go out again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because there's like obviously if you're with people for too much, then it's just kind of you're on top of each other, and then it's just kind
Mm.
of. But no, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. So basically, what I'll start with is, if you thought of mental health, what would you think of, and like, what does it mean to you?
Well, mental health, if someone asked me to talk about mental health is something everyone deals with. So it's not like it doesn't matter if you have good mental health or bad mental health. It's just like physical illness. People deal with it at some point, varying degrees. But everybody has mental health and everyone needs to look after their mental health. So I think that's not talked about enough that
Yeah.
um, actually you need to care for your mental health, even if you don't have a diagnosed mental illness or even if you're feeling good, you still need to be able to care for your mental health. Mm.
Yeah, 100%. And like I've heard from like different people and saying like counseling and stuff, like everyone should be go see a counselor, regardless of if you think you're fine or if you're not. They say that seeing a
Yeah,
counselor is just like everyone, that's like a must for everyone. Do you think that's the
yeah,
case?
definitely. It's just like a doctor. They are a doctor. They're just a doctor for your head. And I think everyone can experience something from a psychologist, a counselor, whoever they see that they wouldn't have known otherwise. So it can actually be a really beneficial thing just to be able to talk to someone else that's a professional. Um, but it doesn't work for everyone as well. So some people might not want to try it as well.
Yeah. Like, do you think there's, from like what I've heard and everything like that, do you think people go, because obviously not, you if you walk into the first counseling play or go see the first
Mm.
psychiatrist or counselor or whatever, you're not always going to gel with them. Do you think people who say, yes, I'm going to see a counselor, go to the first one and go, don't gel or connect with the person and then completely just brush it aside? Do you think staying on that and finding that right person for you is important instead of just
Mm.
completely just pushing it aside?
Yeah, it's so important. I started seeing my first psychologist when I was, I think, 7 or 8. And ever since then, I've like up until just a few years ago when I was like in my late teens, I hated going to see anyone to talk about anything to do with my head. I I just couldn't stand talking to people, and it felt like I was constantly seeing people that I did not like. I did not gel with. I I found them hypocritical and just not nice, but it was actually just my own perceived ideas of it. And
Yeah.
I wasn't allowing myself to actually give it a chance to work.
So do you feel like
Mm.
you were closed off and wouldn't open up, that's why it wouldn't gel? Or do you think it was just a personality clash with the people?
Um, I think it would probably be both because so I'm diagnosed with bipolar and borderline personality, and borderline personality does actually stand in the way sometimes of making connections with other people. So
Yeah.
it's a symptom of the illness, and so I think it was a mix of I was seeing some people that just didn't click with me,
Yeah.
but also I wasn't giving them a chance to actually even hear anything from me because I would just answer with classic, I'm fine,
Yeah.
it's fine, yeah, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
so I was very closed off to it as well.
Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, how long ago were you diagnosed with bipolar and
Um,
personality?
so I was diagnosed originally with depression, anxiety, social phobias, all of those things when I was probably, I think, 14. Um, but early on, so from 8 years old, when I first saw a psychologist, they they chucked all these diagnoses about like so ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder, behavior disorders, mood disorders. So it was constantly doctors trying to label me with something, and it was really hard. So I once I got the diagnosis at 15, 14 that I was depressed and anxious and things like that, I backed away from doctors and said, I don't want to hear from them. I don't want to just them to label me as something and that's it. Just kind of move on. It's been dealt with. Have a diagnosis. That's it. So it wasn't till 2 years ago that I got my first formal diagnosis of um, bipolar. And then when I was 17, um, sorry,
Oh,
can
yeah,
we
no, that's it.
start that over and I'll just
Yeah, that's
start
okay.
again. So I'll make it distinct. Yeah, so I got my first formal diagnosis of borderline when I was 17 during an inpatient stay, but then got re-diagnosed twice. So when I was 18 and 20, and I'm 21 right now. So got re-diagnosed with borderline, and they said it was with bipolar as well. So so I've got both, and even early on, so from 8 years old, was diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder and mood disorders and things like that. So constantly throwing around things and diagnoses, but not till recently do I as well actually feel like, okay, this actually makes sense. This isn't just I've been feeling like this for a few months or things like this. This is actually how I've grown up, and I can see it all the way from when I was younger all the way to now, the symptoms progressing. So yeah.
So do you think that helped a lot, finally getting that diagnosis and like that clarity from that? Do you think that helped you a lot?
Mm. It didn't at first
Yeah.
because I didn't get diagnosed by someone that I had a connection with or someone that I was seeing ongoing. I was diagnosed in a hospital with a doctor who I had known for a day, who I had barely talked to, who wasn't giving me follow-up treatment. It felt really insincere and it didn't feel right. So it didn't help at first. It actually made things a lot worse
Yeah.
because I didn't understand why they would diagnose me with something when they didn't even know me. But once I got the second and third diagnosis from different doctors confirming it and them able to do ongoing care with me, it did make me feel better because I have something that is treatable and that I know other people have.
Yeah, of course.
Other people experience exactly what I've experienced. So it does eventually help, but um, it depends. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So I'll go back to the when you said that you were diagnosed with depression and anxiety when you were 14. Is that
Mm,
right?
yeah, 14, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were diagnosed with that, what kind of, if you can remember, what kind of feelings were you like? How were you feeling when
Mm,
that all happened?
um, oh, like early teenage years. It's a bit of a blur. There was definitely a lot of just anger there and just sadness.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't understand myself. I didn't understand my feelings. I didn't understand why I felt certain ways. And even if I didn't want to feel like that. And I hated that I couldn't control that. Um, so it felt really lonely because I felt like I was doing it myself. I felt like it was also my fault for not being able to control these things, that I'd made myself sad, so I'd given myself depression, or I made myself anxious and gave myself anxiety, like things like that. So it was really hard um, for quite a while there of just not understanding why I was feeling what I was feeling and not accepting those feelings.
Yeah, of course. I mean, at such a young age as well, that must have been
Mm,
really hard for you to kind of, I know, like you
mm,
said, having all that anger and then sadness and stuff, it must have been such a
mm,
challenge because you don't know what's going on and being at
mm.
that young age.
Yeah, and I think it's really common, especially with everything with COVID and all the changes in society, that younger people are dealing with these feelings. But I found it specifically difficult because I had friends that, yes, that were sad and could relate to maybe the feeling of sad, but they didn't understand the other side of the actual deep depression
Yeah.
of physically not being able to leave your bed or having to run out of a room because you're going to break down. Um, was really hard to distinguish that, and I didn't realize that there was like a spectrum, or that you could feel sad and not have depression,
Yeah.
or you can have depression and feel sad.
Yeah.
Not all the time even, but you can have depression and feel sad as well. So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, geez, that must be so hard. I'm quite lucky. I've never, well, that I know of, experienced like that kind of thing. So I guess that's why I'm trying to get the perspective of everything like that. So yeah, at such, that must be
Mm,
so hard for you.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was, and like I'm not gonna lie, it was hell, but it's made me who I am today and given me the perspective I have on life and the connections I can have with other people, because I can understand those feelings from just a bit of sadness to overwhelming sadness. So I work with kids, and I see it in kids that they like the ones I interact with don't have diagnosed conditions, but you can see when they get sad, they get sad. Kids just, they lose the plot, but a minute later they're fine. It doesn't mean they have bipolar, but they experience these extreme emotions exactly like we do when we're older, but we give them leeway because they're kids. So we give ourselves some leeway as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess going back to the kids part, do you feel,
Mm,
I guess not, it's not kind of a popular thing or anything like that, but do you think kids these days, or I don't want to talk because obviously we're still young, but like the
mm,
younger kids, do you feel like if they do have an off day, they're very quick to think they have, well, like obviously I don't want to judge anyone, but do you think they ever jump to the conclusion that it is depression and anxiety, rather than, like you said, finding that balance between just being sad, but like having that sad day and then being all right, but then actually, and then the difference of actually having depression?
Yeah, totally. I see it all the time. And it's I mean, it's because they don't have the education there. They've got wording of depression and they've got the surface level education of what they kind of teach in school or what their friends are talking about. But really, there's just not enough talk about actually this is what depression is. But you still matter if you're feeling sad.
Of
Just
course.
because you don't have depression doesn't mean it doesn't matter.
Yeah, of course.
But like, that's kind of what they're told.
Yeah.
Especially as they enter high school. It's, oh, you're feeling sad, it's fine, you're a teenager. Oh, you're feeling depressed, okay, that's a whole other thing. And also, I think it's definitely more dramatic. So as soon as someone says they're depressed or something, it seems like everyone kind of jumps at it. And they're like, okay, we need to call this person, we need to call a counselor, we need to call New South Wales Healthline, like we need to call all these people and get these things done. But what that person, that teenager usually actually wants is just someone to listen to them, not to tell all these other people and fix them right then and there. They just want someone to listen. And yeah, I think we miss the mark a bit on that.
Yeah, 100%. And then that actually leads into my next point. So what I've been trying to realize is, so I'll say from at my school, like you said, there's not enough education from it. I remember year 11 and 12, we had someone from Headspace come once each year on like a Thursday morning for an hour, and that's it. And it's kind of like, especially in those stressful years, you would hope that, and that was just my school. So obviously I don't want to smash the Headspace people or the teachers or anything, but especially in the year 11 and 12 years, when you're going through your HSC and your exams and all of that kind of stress and pressure you feel on you, you would hope that there would be more awareness and kind of knowledge about depression and anxiety and other mental health problems and that kind of thing. So what was it like at your school? Like, did you have that kind of awareness around, and did you have kind of like a counselor there that you could talk to if you needed to?
So we did have a counselor. I personally, again, I had another bad experience where I personally didn't get along with her, but it was really hard because depending on the situation you're in, sometimes they have to share things with parents. And because my mum's a single mum, everyone expected me to have a good relationship with her, but I actually don't. So the counselor ended up sharing a lot with my mum that I didn't want her to know, which is a breach of trust, a breach of confidentiality. But because I was under 16 when I was talking to her, it didn't matter. So it was really hard to trust the school in general, even though it was this one counselor. I went to the school in general thinking, I can't trust any of the teachers, I can't do that, they're just going to tell my mum. That's not the truth. That's just how some people approach it. Our school had people come in, like people from Headspace. We had someone from Black Dog Institute. So we usually had someone come in around once a year too, to just do that. And then we had like the class in PDHPE, and we did a few things in our like homeroom pastoral care groups, but it was all very surface level. And I think the biggest thing that I found was I ended up in hospital for quite a number of months in year 11 and year 12. And no one knew what to do, which I didn't expect them to.
Yeah.
But school didn't know how to handle it. It was really clear. People didn't know how to approach me. And that's when I really realized, I was like, okay, I don't understand. Like, no one's expected to understand these things. They need to be taught, they need to be educated, but there's not even a first step. I felt like an outcast, that was too hard for the school because it wasn't just a simple sadness. Things like that. So while schools do, most schools do attempt some education or have the basics, it needs to be deeper and it needs to be ongoing, especially into year 11 and 12. As like, there should be fortnightly check-ins where they have someone come in once a fortnight to actually be there and available. That's not part of the school as well, because otherwise you get stuck in the school sphere of things, that breaches of trust and things like that. You want other people to come in and help with that.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you would think there would be more made available, like once, like you said, like once a fortnight or anything like that, not just kind of pushed aside, happen once a year, Thursday morning or whatever, and then that's it for the rest of the year. There should be that reoccurring figure or program there to say and explain these kind of problems, so that like the students are made aware, and then having that outside person, like you said. So then obviously it's not, it's, you've got an outside source, and then it's not there in the school. Like, I don't know how to explain that, but kind of, so it's someone from a different source, so it's an outside source.
Yeah.
So it's obviously not.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then what I was gonna say was, I remember in, like you said, in PE and stuff like that, I can't actually remember, like I'm sure we did it, but I don't think it was significant enough that I literally can't remember doing mental health. Or,
I can't remember what we did. Yeah,
which
I just remember it being touched on.
Yeah, I can remember some topics in PE, but I never remember a set term or however long of mental health. And because obviously they say personal health and development, but that's where I think we're touching on now, is why is the mental health side overlooked? And then that's why, I guess,
and I think
why do you think it's...
I think there's also a difference in terms of, you can educate kids but also not overloading them with information. And that's been something I've thought about for a long time, and I still don't know. It's just something I'm just constantly thinking about, is how much information do you actually give to especially teenagers, young teenagers, and even older ones, without overloading them with like, I mean, these are big topics. It's really big, and if they're hearing it for the first time, it can be really scary. And people don't know how to always feel when words like suicide and depression, anxiety, mental illness, those words come up. So I think there's a place that needs to be researched and investigated more into how to approach those things in the best way possible, to not overload kids and not make them feel like they may have depression or anxiety, but actually giving them a space to look into who they are, why they're feeling things, what that means, giving them a space to actually learn and grow.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I feel like the way you explain, like the way you said, instead of just going in straight there saying you have depression, obviously a kid's gonna go, shit. Like, they're like, anyone would do that. If someone comes up and says, you're diagnosed with depression, no one's gonna be like, right, cool, I'm gonna go see a counselor or something. As amazing as that would be, your natural reaction is shit, like something's wrong with me, I've got a problem, when it's not a problem and it can be helped. And also having that education, I think, would start to build that, so it's not looked at, so when someone is told that, it's not shit, like panic mode. It's kind of, okay, I've got that, process it before panicking, and then kind of going on to like deal with it.
And exactly, like not just one conversation, but ongoing conversations about these things, progressively understanding more, not just doing. And this is what I found, like when people would come in and from Headspace or come and do their talks, they would have this whole hour talking about these big intense topics and all these things, possibly like a 10-minute thing after, where they say you can come up and ask questions, but that's it. There's no ongoing follow-up. There's no next week we're going to explore this more, and you're going to have a chance to ask questions or do your own reflection, because like usually these things are done in year groups or big groups. You don't want that to be the time that you're going up and asking all these questions to these random people in a space where there's your friends are right next to you. You want to be able to do it in a space where you can actually just have a one-on-one conversation with someone as well. So
because obviously in those classrooms, sitting next to your friends, them talking about these heavy topics for an hour, you're not going to get a kid going, miss, I've got depression or something like that, which is, as much as like you would want people to feel comfortable, it's just not natural to do. Like, not natural, but it's very rare that you get someone that would be that open. So
but even if they are, what you come across is that there's going to be students in the class that don't get that. And then it ends up into, oh my gosh, she or he went up to the teacher, or she and he now has depression, and it turns into gossip. And that's another thing you don't want. So that's why follow up and time to actually have a personal conversation with someone else, not in a big group, is really, really needed as well.
100%. And like you said, not just doing those 3 big massive topics, like diving in and talking about suicide straight away on a Thursday morning and terrifying everyone, building up and then having those follow-up sessions, so gradually easing them into that kind of the heavier stuff would make, I feel would make such a difference, because they're not only bombarded with things as soon as they get to school, like extreme things, they're slowly building up, and then they have things to think about until the next follow-up session, which I feel would be so much more beneficial than, like we said, just one session, just piling a shitload of stuff on them and then saying, you have 10 minutes with all your classmates sitting around there, but if you want, you can come up to me.
100%.
Which I feel would be a lot better than doing that. And then,
but still, there's nothing wrong with these things, and like it's better than nothing.
Of course.
The fact that there's still education, 100%. But it's just, how can we keep on improving? And this isn't just for talking about mental health. This is talking about any topic. Is how can we improve this? How can we make this better for other people? Because nothing's perfect. So we need to keep on going and keep on talking about these things.
Definitely. So I've got one big topic I kind of want to talk about, which is the first I've kind of touched on in my page kind of thing. So coming from your perspective, do you think that men, or someone that kind of, also I don't want to discriminate against anyone, so someone that identifies as something kind of similar or whatever, do you think there needs to be further education into, I don't know, it's tough to put, but in regards to treatment of women and people, obviously, like not but like people that that. So basically, what I want to get to is, I don't know if you saw the article the other week of the Knox boy who punch the girl outside the club. So that was basically what, obviously growing up, I was pretty lucky. I've got 2 older sisters. I've got my mum here as well. They were pretty like stamped out straight away, like how to treat a woman, like don't say these things, and educated me on why you don't say these things. So, which I've benefited from, is fantastic and everything. But I feel like what I've noticed is people that like boys and those like people that identify similar to them, who don't have those kind of female figures that are older and have that experience, you tend to find that they are the ones that will treat someone, so they'll walk past a girl, call her a slut or fat, or and like what happened in this article, the guy just felt the need that he was acceptable to punch a girl outside of a bar. So I guess so the question was, sorry, I kind of rambled on a bit there.
No, all good. That was good context.
So the question is, I think, do you think it would help for boys and men to be educated in that topic?
Of course. Like any education is really beneficial. I think it's hard because as much as we can see, like in your circumstance, how you've been impacted by your sisters and mum and girls around you, he could have easily also had those people in his life that he chose to ignore, or he didn't quite get on the ball with that, or just chose to make wrong choices in regards to how to treat women or anyone. I think if he's doing it to women, he's probably doing it to his friends too, because I think like most in most circumstances, it's not just specifically on gender, but we never but I think both ways there needs to be education on how to respect and treat both women and men, or anyone in general, actually just people, just respecting and treating people for who they are. Like I think it's also overlooked because men are actually significantly more at risk of suicide and depression and anxiety in terms of being undiagnosed. And it doesn't help when they've got this context of you need to be a tough guy, or you need to be looking after the women, or things like that. That's a society issue right there, is gender inequality and putting unrealistic expectations on someone just because of their gender. Men have feelings, women have feelings. It's in our DNA, and we both are susceptible to mental illness and different things. So yeah, I don't know if that fully answers it, but
well, 100%, 100%. Because I feel like just education as a whole, and then like you said, the gender inequality as well. I feel, and then obviously like men do suffer from, like statistic wise, they have higher rates of suicide and depression and anxiety. So I feel like that's such a thing that needs to be kind of, I don't know, not like dealt with, but obviously addressed so like deeply. But then I guess like that alone could stem further problems. So maybe, I don't know, obviously I'm not making excuses for anyone, but maybe those kind of problems not being addressed and having that kind of, the big one, like the toxic masculinity, like, oh, I need to be this macho guy, or I need to do this, which I feel is such a big problem, especially in guys, like going around hanging out with your mates, like you feel like you need to be that like kind of macho guy, and you can't show emotion, you can't, like you said, you have to look after the women, like you can't cry. Like I feel like that's such a big problem.
100%. And like it's really good, like even in the past few years it's more and more addressed, especially in the media, which is where people see a lot of what they're learning about on social media. But it just needs to be continued, and there needs to be more spheres for especially men to be able to share those emotions, and be able to talk about those things without judgment. And yeah, just understanding that they're human, like everyone's human. Men are human just as much as women are human. So they're going to deal with these things just as much as women do. So yeah, it's been somewhat addressed, but it needs to continue to be more and more addressed, and more education around that.
So do you think the way to address these kind of inequalities and problems would be further education at those younger years? So by the time you do get to like your being a young adult and middle age into your like later years, having that education earlier, hoping it sticks with you, would generate through everyone. Do you feel like that would make a lot of a difference if I guess if you start at the age where you were influenced so much and educating those kind of topics, do you think that would help a lot further?
Yeah, definitely. But I think like as much education is, that's the biggest factor in it, there's still other factors as well. So I think education is definitely key, starting that education off early as possible, but also following that up. And not everyone's going to listen to these things. I mean, how much do we get taught about not to be a bully? But I think everyone can say at some point in their lives they've been a bully to someone, even if they've not known. It's the education's there, but that's only part of it. And it's hard because people do make mistakes, and I think we really need to be loving towards other people that do make mistakes and may not know how their actions are affecting other people. I think that's where just talking as well, communication as well as education is also really important. Listening to other people, listening to other people's stories, how they've been impacted, and learning from that as well, because stories are a great form of education as well.
Yeah, 100%. So if you could look on perfect scenario in a way that you could change how kind of mental health is perceived and like these like toxic masculinity, like gender inequalities, things like that, do you think the best way forward is through education and kind of awareness on whether it be social media or news outlets or anything? Do you think those two are the main kind of outlets in where we can make a change? And if you have any more, do you think that would help?
I definitely think they're big factors. And I don't have an answer for this, but this is another thing I've been thinking about, is that there's a gray area there of people that they know about these topics. This guy from Knox, he could have easily known all the information about women, but he can still choose to make a wrong choice.
Exactly.
So there's a gray area there of how do we combat that? How do we combat when people aren't listening to other people? How do we combat when people don't care about other people and how they're feeling? So I think that's something that needs to be looked at, and that's a big way to that we can learn about all these topics and actually grow from them, is just understanding different people in different contexts, different situations, people's feelings. And not everyone's going to get it. Not everyone's going to hear a talk from someone about men not having to be masculine all the time and actually listen to it, or women and men being equal. They could easily hear that, they could see it over social media, but they can also just choose to disregard it. So there's a gray area there of what do we do when those things don't work.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess moving on from that, like kind of moving back to the depression and anxiety, because I feel like that's such, like, when you think of mental health, that's kind of the main issues that are kind of made aware to people. In your personal experiences, do you feel like how do you feel like they've changed who you are? Like, I guess because you experienced it at such a young age, how do you feel like it changed who you are or made who you are?
Like it is the biggest reason. I personally believe you're impacted by your environmental just as much as you are your mental. So when you've got those two colliding, I didn't have a good environment and I didn't have a good mental stability. It has made me who I am today after going through after going through the speed bumps, huge speed bumps. But after going through all of that, it still contributes to who you are today. And like I've only just started to be okay with that. And it's still hard. I still struggle with the fact that this is it's not my identity, but it is part of who I am. It's something you have for your life. You won't necessarily have depression or anxiety your whole life, but it's something you've dealt with, so it becomes part of you. It doesn't define you, but it becomes part of you and something you've dealt with.
Yeah, 100%. So would you say that you've kind of moved past the stage of like suffering from it and kind of not dealt with it, but you like managed it? So at your point now, do you feel like you've gotten to that point or not quite?
I definitely still struggle with it. But I think I'm seeing more and more the way I might react to a situation or tackle something hard in my life. I see more and more change there because of changes in my life that I've chosen to make, or from talking to a psychologist or being on the right medication, things like that. I see more and more how those things have actually contributed to I am better than I was. And I still deal with a lot of hard feelings and a lot of stuff like that, but there's change, and that does give you hope. After there was such a long period there where I was doing all these things. I was attending my psychologist sessions, I was on medication, all these things, and I still felt crap, and I didn't understand why it wasn't working if I was doing everything. It gives you a little bit of hope when you see things eventually somewhat change. So I feel hopeful about my future because of that. Even if the bad days are still hard, there's the really good days where I do understand that I've come so far. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So if you could send a message to someone who is kind of looking for advice or that kind of guidance from someone who has suffered and is kind of managing and kind of dealing with it, what would your kind of advice be to that person? I know it's kind of like a really big question, but
loving yourself is a big thing. I'm such a hypocrite saying that, because rarely am I kind to myself. Rarely do I love myself properly. But I find when I do, and I give myself just a bit of leeway, saying, hey, it's okay that you've cancelled on that person because you're really not feeling great right now. That's okay. It's okay. That's when I've felt things like that, where I've actually felt like, hey, it's okay. I can do things for myself while also caring about other people. And I think that's what I tell everyone I interact with, is that it's okay to do things for yourself. It doesn't mean you have to make yourself the center of everything and do all that, but it's okay to think about yourself before you think about others, because otherwise you can't help others out. I love helping people. I love being there for people. I love loving people, but I can't do that properly if I'm not okay. So yeah.
So do you feel like putting yourself first and then kind of accepting and loving yourself first before you help anyone else is the most important thing?
Um, I would say it's, you have to get started.
Yeah,
You don't have to fully love
yeah,
yourself
of
or
course
love
not.
yourself
Fully done.
24/7, things like that. But starting to give yourself a little bit of leeway, a little bit of acceptance. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay for someone to be angry at you because of a choice you made. It's okay to feel sad or feel anxious, especially now, it's okay to have lockdown fatigue. It's okay to miss these things. It's okay to be anxious about going to a picnic with friends again. Like, it's okay to do these things. You don't have to feel 100% about it, but you need to start with accepting that that's how you feel and it's okay.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess the big message is to say like it is okay to feel, like not completely erase like and say you've dealt with your depression and anxiety,
Mm,
all those kind of things, but
mm,
making a start and progressing is just
mm.
important.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Making a start and keeping on going, even if you don't see those changes, because I think that's also a thing. People say, oh, you'll see a psychologist, you'll feel better, you'll go on medication, you'll feel better, things like that. It doesn't happen straight away, and if it does, you're that's really great. Like, if those things help, that's awesome, because you've found something that helps. But not everyone finds it that easily. I've been on so many different medications, gone to so many psychologists, tried so many different things, and I still don't feel 100%. I have good days, I have bad days, but it's something. It's a change, and I'm growing and learning. So yeah, it's just keep on trying different things, even when you're tired and even when it's hard.
Yeah, 100%. So do you feel like we have touched on it, but do you feel like being
Mhm.
kind to yourself and saying like not being too hard on yourself and saying like you have started, like you have
Yeah.
know the start to help yourself and like to get better and not
Mm,
just, like I said, dealing with it straight away, but that you've made a start and I guess accepting that
mm,
it doesn't have to be okay straight away, but the fact you've made a start is good enough.
mm. Yeah. Giving myself compassion, things like that. Like, obviously it's not going to work 100% of the time, but remembering what I've been through, how much I've been through, what my body's been through, because our bodies deal with all of these things in different ways as well. They deal with stress by your muscles react, things like that. Like, yeah, there's a lot that your body goes through as well. So it's just, you just need to be kind to yourself even when you don't feel okay. um and like, even sometimes I have a thing where I'll feel sad for like the whole night. I'll wallow in that sadness, but the next day I go, hey, remember, I got through that. I've taken my medication, like, I'm doing everything I can. It's okay that I had that bad night. That's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. I can keep on going. um because I used to just, it would weigh up on me when I would have a bad night and another bad night and another bad night. I would add them up, but you don't have to add them up. They can be separate. They can just be bad nights, not a bad week.
Yeah, 100%. Like that, I feel is so, it's so important to
Mhm.
not keep adding things up and then putting yourself
Mhm.
down and overthinking and kind of putting yourself in that kind of space where you don't feel confident or confident or anything like that, but just kind of accepting that that was a bad day And then even if you have another one, just saying, yep, okay, that's a bad day, and not, like you said, just not stacking them up.
Yeah.
I feel like
100%.
that's so important.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. So I've covered pretty much a lot of what I wanted to, but one last thing I wanted to touch on, because I remember you said you had experience in the adult kind of services and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
briefly,
The public, adult, and private
yeah,
systems. Yeah.
because obviously I don't want to keep you for too much longer, but if you could briefly just kind of discuss how that was.
Yeah. So I started in the young adult section, which is called CAMS. And so that was my way into, I was already in the public system. I had interacted with the private system, but the private system's really complex. And because I was an involuntary patient, I also wasn't allowed to be in a space that was uncontrolled. And so that's where I had started out. So I was kind of trapped in the system as per se, just because of my situation. So I was in CAMS from 16. And then once I turned 18, you go straight over to the adult system. But the adult system is not like CAMS, and they don't give you enough information on that. It's a really hard system to navigate through. It's got a lot of flaws, but yeah, so my kind of experience was I ended up having to get a private psychologist once I turned 18 through Medicare subsidy. And yeah, so it's really complex to wrap your head around the adult system specifically.
Yeah, wow, 100%. So do you feel like getting your own, like you said, your own like personal psychologist helped a lot more than having that kind of, so was it kind of like a shared one, was it? Or
so what happens is, so in CAMS, when you're in CAMS, you have usually a team. So you have a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a social worker, occupational therapist, different people that they work together, and they also they usually involve things like family therapy or interactions with school therapy, so helping a school deal with what's going on with you, things like that. So they're much more multidisciplinary in their approach, whereas the adult system, they only provide you with, I think, 5 sessions with someone, and that's only on crisis support. So they don't have the ongoing multidisciplinary care, which is what I needed for stability. So I actually was really unstable after I turned 18 because of that, because I didn't have a team that I had. But I'm really thankful for Medicare that we live in Australia and we can actually get 10 sessions for free. I think it's 20 sessions now per year for a psychologist. So that's not actually in the adult system.
yeah, 100%. And I feel like obviously we've touched on how we could improve the education of mental health and that kind of thing. But then I guess they have done really well in, like you said, having those free sessions with a psychiatrist from Medicare. I feel like is such a good step and such a positive, because then obviously that helps people that are struggling with money or something like that to, I don't know, have that benefit of going to see a psychologist. or psychiatrist or something like that. So I feel like that's so important. And I guess obviously not, because obviously I don't want to put them down or anything like that, but like that, like raising more awareness for that, because that in itself is such a big step towards helping people with mental health and everything, like mental health issues and stuff like that. So I mean, good on them for doing that, because I actually didn't know that until I did an interview with someone last week, and they made that aware to me that they did do the free session. So I mean, like, I guess making that more aware, like I might not have just looked into it properly enough, but I guess making that more aware to everyone that they are doing those, that Medicare does include the 10 or 20 sessions.
GPs are really good at that, because that you have to go to your GP and get a mental health plan to receive them. But I'm really thankful for that we have that in Australia, and we have all those things, but it's like there's still not enough in terms of the public system, because like me, like I come from a single mum. I've got my grandparents who don't have a lot of money. I didn't have money to pay for a psychologist, psychiatrist. Like I have to see my psychologist and psychiatrist quite frequently. So without the Medicare, which still gives me time, I still have to cover a lot of the costs, because there's 52 weeks in a year, especially with more complex issues. You can't just get away with seeing a psychologist once a month. I sometimes have to see them weekly or fortnightly, so I still have to cover a lot of the costs. So I think that like the system's okay, but it's got a long way to go.
Yeah, definitely. So do you think the kind of financial pressure and the stress of having to pay for the kind of help and the counseling, the psychologists and everything like that, do you feel like that deters a lot of people away from those kind of services? Because obviously, I guess if you're having to support yourself, paying that money, and then also, I guess you get a lot of people that don't want to be or think they're a burden on their parents or grandparents or aunties, uncles, or whoever that helps them out, feeling like they're a burden because they're asking for money to help. Deter people away. Do you think that's the case?
I think it depends on the situation. What I've found is most people see it as, oh, I've got 10 free sessions. They like, that's all that's enough for them. But it's people like me, or people that have different situations going on, that need more than just 10 or 20, that need a lot more care, and don't have the finances. It is really stressful I didn't want to actually engage with a new psychologist once I had gone into the adult system, because I didn't want to connect with someone and work so hard with someone to only have, when I started it was 10 sessions, only have 10 sessions with them, and then that's it. I can't see them for the rest of the year, because I was having to see them every week. So I think it doesn't work for people that it's not just a